Hello boys and girls, let me tell you a little story. I know you like stories. Way back in the Old Testament times, the people of Israel wanted to have a king like all the other countries around them. Before that they didn't have a king. God was looking after them directly. So they asked God, we want to have a king. So God said, okay, you're going to have a king. And they got their first king. And the first king's name was Saul. After Saul came their second king called David, who was a special king that God wanted anointed to lead his people Israel. So David became king. And you know the story of David and the giant Goliath? Yep, that's him. So David became the king. And what he did when he became the king in his kingdom, he had representatives from every tribe. So there were 12 tribes of Israel. So he took a person from each tribe and they were part of his council to help him govern his kingdom. And as his kingdom got bigger than the 12 tribes, other neighbouring peoples became part of the kingdom of Israel, then they had more of these councillors. And as the kingdom of Israel came and one died or something, they were then replaced and went down. They always had a representative of the people of the kingdom of Israel. Okay, so what happened later on? Kingdom of Israel, it all finished. Attacked by other people from other countries and so forth, no more. But God had promised that David, King David's line would continue, and one day, he would raise up a new king to rule God's people. And he would be descended from David and he would restore the kingdom of David, God's special kingdom. And this special person that God was going to raise up was called the Messiah. And so the people of Israel were waiting for the coming of the Messiah. And then of course, we have Bethlehem. We have the birth of Jesus. And Jesus was the Messiah. He had come to restore the kingdom of Israel, to gather God's people together in a special way. So the people in the Old Testament, the Jewish people, were so excited. Okay, but how do we know that he is the new king? He is the descendant of David. He's going to restore the kingdom. Well, one thing Jesus did, he said, I'm here to establish my kingdom. He picked 12 blokes. We call them the apostles. 12. Just like King David had the 12 that represented the 12 tribes. 12. That's why he had 12. So the people around are thinking, oh, okay, King David. This is our new king, Messiah. And of course, Jesus performed all the miracles and everything he did. So they knew he was someone special. But he picked those 12, the 12 apostles. And they were there to help him look after the people of God. And we call those 12 apostles bishops. They were the first bishops. And as the people of God grew, bigger numbers all around the world, more bishops were made. Okay? Were consecrated and blessed. I guess he had bishops then all over the world. So they multiplied and they showed, that the kingdom of David, the new kingdom of David, ruled by Jesus, the descendant of David, is a reality in our world. So that's why you have these bishops. Okay, so they're all around the world. To become a bishop, you've got to be appointed by the Pope. The Pope's got to say, he looks for someone and he wants to be a bishop, and he makes sure that they're really trying to be holy, that they've got some brains, and they love the church. And if there's got no reason why not, and they've got some special quality, the Pope will appoint them a bishop. And then they'll go through a ceremony, a mass, where they're ordained a bishop. So it's not like a normal job where you apply to become a bishop. You're appointed by the Pope to become a bishop. So for myself, I had no idea I was going to be a bishop. No idea, complete surprise. So that's how you become a bishop. So that's the first thing. Well, what does a bishop do? Well, the bishop has three main functions. To teach, okay, first one, teach. To govern, second one, and to sanctify, to make holy, to bring people to God. They're the three things. Everything else fits into one of those categories. So as a bishop, first of all, to teach. Well, that's what the bishop does, doesn't he? He teaches. You probably see me come to your school. You probably end up seeing me at confirmation. I get up at Mass and I tell you, I teach you about God. I might come into your schools and I teach you about Jesus, or about Mary, about the saints. I'm teaching. Sometimes I teach by telling you about things, like this video. It's teaching. Sometimes it's by the way I do things, how I treat people. That's also teaching. So a bishop teaches, number one. Secondly, he governs. Governs. What does that mean? He organises things. Okay, he organises things. He's got to make sure that there's priests in parishes. He's got to make sure that the diocese is running okay. He's got to make sure that your schools are going okay. And he looks after all those and he governs. And he gets to say, oh, that's right, that's wrong. You better fix that. Or that's really good. You keep going with that. That's what governing is. To just make sure things are going okay. That's the second thing. The third thing is to sanctify. And to sanctify, or to make holy, bring people to God. That's why the bishop, really important to say masses. When the bishop comes, you get confirmation, say a mass. The bishop presides at Mass. The bishop prays. He has to pray for the people a lot. And he has to encourage them to come to know Jesus. Blesses a lot. If you ever see the bishop around, I bless things. I bless people. I bless schools. I bless homes. These are sanctifying. These are making things holy, setting them apart for the service of God. So that's part of the things that a bishop does. And in helping the bishop do things, he's got certain things that he has, which I will show you now. This is the first thing I want to show you. This is a bishop's special hat called a mitre. A mitre. The mitre comes from Old Testament times, where the high priest in Jerusalem would wear a mitre. So this is part of the bishop's role of sanctifying. It represents that. And you can see that because it's like an arrow and it's not pointing to the earth. It's not pointing to that direction or that direction. It's pointing to God. Pointing to God. So when the bishop's got this on, he is sanctifying in a particular way. You wear it like that. And he's actually pointing to God. So he's directing. You look at me when I'm wearing this hat, I'm like a big arrow pointing to God. That helps the bishop remember that his job is to bring people closer to God, make them holy. And you'll see in the back of the bishop's mitre, these are these two little tails. They're called lappets. I like that name, a lappet. These are lappets, and in the old days, the lappets were at the back of the bishop's hat, so if the bishop was sweating, really hot day, sweating, he could wipe his forehead like that and put them back there. I don't use them to wipe my forehead anymore, but they're kept on the bishop's mitre to remind the bishop that he has to work hard for his people and work hard for God. So they symbolise work and effort. That's the mitre. Next thing you'll see bishops have a lot is a crozier. It's a shepherd's crook. You can see that. If you look at the nursery rhyme, pictures of little Bo Peep. She's got one too, but mine's better than hers. So this is a crozier, and this symbolises the bishop's important role of governing. Because what does a shepherd's crook do? The bishop's like the shepherd, and the people are like the sheep, the flock. So what does this do? You can guide the sheep with your shepherd's crook. If one goes the wrong way, you can go and hook them, bring them back, keep them together, organise them with your shepherd's crook, with the crozier. And if some nasty animal, some wolf or something comes along, you can defend your sheep. So the bishop has to defend his flock. That's why he has this. It can be a weapon, because the devil likes to go and break up the flock. So the bishop has one of these, a crozier. And my crozier is really special because it's got a statue of 4 saints: Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. These are the 4 evangelists that wrote down the inspired word of the Gospels. So Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. And that's to remind the bishop that as well as organising the flock, keeping them together and defending them, he's always got to preach the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke and John to the four corners of the world. Good for me to remember that every time I use this. The story continues. So we have Jesus, our Lord Jesus. He's the new king, but not just a new king of the people of God. He's the King of Kings. He's actually God. That's pretty well awesome. So you have God in Jesus picks the apostles. And then he just didn't want the apostles to finish when they died. He wanted the apostles to make other apostles, other bishops. Okay, so it gets handed down. So only a bishop can ordain another bishop after the Pope's picked him. Okay, so I could trace my episcopal, which is the flash name for a bishop, line right back to one of those 12 apostles. So if it's St. Peter, he ordained a bishop, that bishop ordained another bishop, etc., right down 2,000 years throughout history. And that's called apostolic succession. So it goes right back. Okay, it's handed on. That's really, really important. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that story and I hope you know a little bit more about bishops and what a bishop is and how you become a bishop. Like I said, it's important the bishop to sanctify, to make holy. So prayer is really important. So I'm going to pray for you because we always need prayer and support. Pray that God will bless you. I wonder if you would say a little prayer for me and all the other bishops of the world, because sometimes it can be pretty hard to be a bishop. And I know, because Jesus has told us, that the prayers of little children are very powerful. Thank you.